telling you kind of how the Weather Service has gotten involved in this over the last almost decade now. So we're going to start off by kind of telling the story about how that happened and some of the inspirations with that, and then what's currently been going on now with our next speaker, Jen Sorry, after this one. So we're going to start off with a presentation that actually is myself, but a special guest, Denise Kaufman, who came all the way from Nashville this morning to provide this talk. We're going to start off with a story of the 2010 Nashville flood. So our talk is actually called Listening to Those Who Cannot Hear. So I'm going to ask all of you to listen very closely to the story that's about to be told by our guest speaker. So Denise, come on. The floor is yours. Now, how many of you understood that story? The words that were said? Now, how many people felt what she was trying to say? So, think about how uncomfortable it is to not actually know the detail of the issue that's going on, but knowing exactly that it's something that is very important, very fearful, that something needs to be done. So how does the Weather Ready Nation start to tackle this? What do we have to do? What are we proposing needs to change? Well, Dr. Susan Jasko had a talk yesterday that made me think that there's a way that we can do this. She was starting to talk about how we need to do more than just typical outreach, how we need to be thinking like the communities we're trying to serve. We're calling this cultural immersion. So how do we actually do this? How do we immerse ourselves into the cultures of these populations that we're trying to serve that we really don't have any idea how to do it? Because we are not, as hearing folks, are not able to do so. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we did this at the Weather Service in Nashville back when I was there, and how some examples of how we can start doing it, and the allies that we can make, and advocates that can be part of that process. So I'm going to reintroduce Denise Coffin, the president of the EARS Consortium, Emergency Awareness and Readiness Services for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing in Middle Tennessee, now a 501c3, I believe. So you want to tell us a little bit about the EARS story and how can we?
Now you know I'm hearing. I'm not deaf, but my daughter had lost her hearing when she was about 2.5, which helped me to understand about people who are deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind. And about 25%, if you take all people in the United States, and about 25% of the population has some kind of hearing loss. And of those who are hard of hearing, about 1% are deaf who use sign language as their primary form of communication. Bottom line is, the older you get, the less you can hear. And then, of course, you can have concomitant problems with vision and have dual sensory loss. And we do work with the deafblind as well. So the reason we have EARS is because we realized in 2009 there were other emergencies that had come up, sexual assaults and so on. And then later, by 2010, we had the flood, and I worked at a place called Bridges, which as their wellness director, and my job was to be able to have communication access and also to facilitate our clients and empower them. So why? Because a lot of people think that deaf can't be trained to become empowered or to know how to get through emergencies, so we started doing cross trainings. And because of the flood, because of communication access or the lack thereof, and also even those persons who were from FEMA who were poorly trained in terms of the legal responsibility they had to provide interpreters and not put the onus on our clients, these were all the situations that came up. So it started with that, and National Weather Service, I don't know if Tom Johnstone is in here, but he was one of the first persons who joined our coalition. We have advocates of deaf, hard of hearing, and deafblind who are also part of our advocacy group or our consortium. We have the Tennessee Disability Deaf and Hard of Hearing and Deafblind who are involved, Red Cross, TEMA, FEMA, I mean, just a whole list of different agencies in which they send at least one person to come to our quarterly meetings where we discuss issues that come up and provide programming. We were also the first to provide the first ever, I think, for the National Weather Service, a storm spotting training program for the deaf and hard of hearing in Nashville, and that was all because of Trevor and Tom Johnstone. So that's our coalition.
So how does Weather Service fit into this? I mean, obviously with the flood, there's a need for a partner that has to do with the weather. So a little bit about me, I actually minored in deaf culture at Texas Tech. You can minor in that. And so I had kind of a unique into this when my boss at the time, Larry Venozzi, asked on my interview, first thing, not about what the weather was like or what my education was about as far as meteorology was concerned, but do you know sign? And so right off the bat, he said, we have this group that would really like to be able to form a relationship with us. We'd like to do that. And so I sort of came in there and thinking, oh, I know a little bit. I minored, I took some classes, and I know exactly how to help this group. And so here I go trying to do that, and there was a lot of things I learned along the way. One, that the principal concern that was brought up to us as a part of EARS was not really something the Weather Service could answer, like captioning. Did you read that? Captioning is really poor, come to find out. Not something I had any idea about. I never have to use it, so why would I know that? We also have an issue with the types of ways that people get notified. Almost all of them require a hearing in order to use it. Up until recently, WIA has been able to fix some of that, but even if you were to use WIA, you have to read the text. What if you don't read English? What if you're a primary ASL user? If you're on screen, where's the caption? Is it even able to be used? I mean, you're reading that amongst everything else. Even the live stream we're starting to get into with things like the National Hurricane Center, does that have any way to be accessible for the deaf? All of this, even the way we're messaging, even our safety messaging. When thunder roars, go indoors. We've been saying that to deaf people for years. So how do we start fixing this? And Denise is going to tell us a little bit about one of the ways that we tried to start doing that.
With the weather spotting class that we've had, which was very successful, this was the second one that we provided. But we were able to get grant money. Well, it started with one of the interns from Metro Health, who came in with all of these weather alert radios and to our group. He came in with one of our members, and they brought all these weather alert radios, but there was no accessibility to it. They were all for hearing people. And we said, we really thank you for providing these, but I don't think our consumers can use these because they can't hear it. And that's where he talked about having grant money that we could use in order to provide the weather alert radios with accessibility like bed shaker and strobe lights. So I think we got 142 we were able to get, because the cost, if you may pay $35 for your weather alert radio, and oftentimes they're offered for free, but a person who can't hear it, or even who has some vision issue, may not, it's not going to do them any good. But for $35, if they go buy it, they still don't have the accessibility part, and that, I think they cost about $145 each for the radio plus accessibility. So the cost was really hard. So we had people coming in from Alabama and Mississippi and all parts of Tennessee. We've had people contacting us from Michigan because what we said, and from other parts of the United States, because they wanted to be able to come. You had to take the storm spotting class and learn about safety issues. After the whole thing was over, we distributed the weather alert radios with the accessibility parts. And then each one was numbered so that we could follow up with how they were using it, if they knew how to set them up, and so on. And then we had Mike Helms, who was also with Bridges, and he put an ASL instructional on there, but it's also caption. I believe it's voice, right? So it's completely accessible to anybody, to show them how to set it up. And it's available to any of you.
So we couldn't have done this without ears. I couldn't have done this without an advocate. We had Vanderbilt and,
Vanderbilt.
We had Vanderbilt, we had Metro Public Health, we had the Weather Service that provided the training, we had
Red Cross for safety.
Red Cross, right? So all of these people have come together in order just to solve this one thing, that was 1 day long type of thing. So the point we're trying to make here is really, you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. If you think you're going to be starting answering questions, if you don't know what the question is, you're going to be answering the wrong thing. And so, if we really want populations to advocate for the Weather Ready Nation culture, then the Weather Ready Nation culture has to advocate, or the Weather Ready Nation has to advocate for their cultures. So we need to be going in there and representing the questions that they are asking, not the questions we think are the issue. So this is an important distinction because it starts to really get to the point where I've gotten this question a lot. How do I start? You got to start by asking questions and not trying to predict what they are. And it's advocates like Denise that can help you answer that because they are immersed in the culture and they can help us get immersed into the culture.
They add to that, also culture is an issue, and Kathy, I think the speaker before, was talking about working with the deafblind and people who are blind, but also in rural areas. The numbers of people, and that's so important in getting grants, as you know, for statistics. We don't have good numbers of people who have hearing loss, and so those are huge issues. And so what we've learned is that every area is different in the state of Tennessee, and so we're really working to reach out and get grants to allow us to come into some of those areas, and using deaf people, your Yodas, who can go to those areas and pull everybody in to get information that they can pass on to us.
Exactly. This is stuff that we cannot do. So how has the Weather Service utilized this type of concept, and how have we begun to do it? This is going to lead into the next talk, but We started reaching out with the ambassador program, identifying people like Gallaudet University, University for the Deaf, Texas School for the Deaf. Many other organizations are now Weather Radiation ambassadors. It's a good start. Not nearly enough, but it's a good place to start. The Weather Radiation national page now has a deaf and hard of hearing section, which there's Mike and lots of other videos, actually by the Birmingham office, that has created a lot of ASL videos that for safety for all sorts of different things. Here's an example of that. This is the Birmingham office with just education on how to find yourself on a map. Stuff that we struggle with as we're hearing, but something that obviously is going to be amplified for those that don't use English. And then also, to the national level, we've also provided advisement to the IPAWS group and how WIA should be constructed altogether, and with some suggestions as it pertains to that. So that's basically where we are up to this point. It's going to lead very much into the next talk by Jen Sari about what we're doing now at the state level, at the ground level. So thank you, Denice, for being here and driving all the way down and being part of this. And that's our talk, but I'll just segue right into introducing Jen Sari. She is somebody who's here at the Nashville, or the Huntsville